GTA clone is a term widely used to refer to games that mimic 3D GTA-era games to some extent, generally boiling down to open-world game with story, driving, and various content. Original 2D GTAs are classic that are overlooked by many, and yet those games also inspired developers to give their twist on the original GTA formula. Today we'll be talking about the game that had great potential, but in its ambitions it flew too close to the sun. However, it might not be the end just yet, though I'm getting way ahead of myself. It's the game that made me kickstart this 2D GTA clone video train, which I hopefully won't abandon. The game in question is Glitchpunk. Not the most known GTA clone, as most people would instantly say Retro City Rampage, Shakedown Hawaii, or Rustler, and yet that one I had so many hopes for ever since alpha for the game came out. Possibly way too many hopes. Glitchpunk is a game developed by Polish indie studio Dark Lord and published by Daedalic Entertainment. It was released in early access in late 2021 to mixed reviews of relatively small audience. I've learned about its existence not long before that and was actually pretty hyped for it simply because it was advertised as GTA 2 plus Cyberpunk setting. And when I played it, I loved it. Game felt like GTA 2 in so many ways. Just looking at some of these footage or listening to the game radio would instantly give away that feeling. And yet you could feel that Glitchpunk had something to back it up, as not a simple knockoff, but as a game with its own set of unique ideas and mechanics. In early access, you played as a nameless android who does arrive to a city of New Baltia, where you are getting introduced to 3 rivaling factions, or the cultists, Plague and Reapers, and you instantly see 3 respect meters in the corner thinking, oh, okay, I see how it is. However, for better or worse, that is more or less a distraction. Unlike GTA 2, which was arcade fun, with missions being just one of the ways to progress through the game, Glitchpunk put a main focus on the story. And as soon as you start doing missions, you will find yourself, willingly or not, being locked into one of 3 gangs without just being able to select any others. And each gang has its own storyline that essentially takes place during one another, though you can only learn that by replaying the area. You will get to learn a gang leader a bit more, they will start trusting you a bit more, and eventually all storylines collide and chapter ends with one of the 3 possible endings. Base gameplay is pretty straightforward. You move with WASD, turn around with mouse, jump, shoot, steal the cars, drive around, blah blah blah. Pretty normal package. However, various bonuses and power-ups, comparing to, let's say, GTA 2, are purchasable and you can use them wherever you want, making it possible to approach missions differently. Not where the game dictates you that, hey, you can do that here only. And some of those are pretty busted, like on-demand invulnerability or wanted level reset. But that's not all. Remember that the game is cyberpunk, and generally that means simply one thing: augmentation. There's a pretty big menu with 3 different subsets of modules, which include general buffs, simple hacks, and an active ability. Buffs come in pretty simple forms, just some HP, energy bonuses, movement speed, attack speed, and so on. Simple hacks affect your actions in so-called cyberspace, a mode in this game that completely freezes time, allowing you to inspect your surroundings, check NPCs around you, and those hacks allow you to set enemies on frenzy mode, make them super derpy, instantly stop some car, or get a shop discount for just small cost of your energy. And an active ability comes in the form of invisibility or dash. You get some upgrades by just doing missions, but otherwise you get them from pawn shops where they randomly spawn each time, and you can get better stats, longer effects, smaller energy costs, various extra stat bonuses on top of already existing active abilities. All of that just adds a bit variety to options of replaying the missions. Also, City has analogs of kill frenzies from GTA, or rampages, whichever you played more, which just called headhunt hubs in this game, and reward you with money for completing them. You do still have a hideout where you can save, but you also, unlike in GTA 1 and 2, well, in GTA 1 there was no save spot, but in GTA 2 there was, but you couldn't save cars. Well, here you can. Radio has pretty good songs and talk shows, and it's kind of charming how it tries to mimic GTA 2 radio, but in a bit of a modern light. Wait, I've said mixed reviews a while back. How comes? I've only been saying so many good things about the game, how good it was during alpha. Well, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, unfortunately. Game had massive performance issues. In fact, it was so bad that after 30-40 minutes of gameplay, your frame rate would go down more than half, on top of already very, very bad optimization. Lowering graphics made game completely unrecognizable and extremely ugly, and lowering seemingly wasn't boosting performance by a whole lot. This was already really bad for many people, but on top of that, game just had very many tiny bugs and issues, like car controls, which many people didn't appreciate. Every car feels like it slides on ice because it's future and they're flying, or I think they are. I didn't mind that all that much, as I bought into the setting and just accepted that, hey, that's how they are. But it definitely requires some time to get adjusted to it. Some people complained about manual saves at a hideout, which just is a skill issue in my opinion. But my main issue with Alpha and Glitchpunk in general was the fact that you had to replay the area every time you wanted to do new ending, which also required you to beat first 3 missions of each gang. Running ahead of myself, I'll say that unfortunately this is still the case in the final release of a game, which is made even worse by the fact that even if you disable autosave of any kind in the game, after saving, like after first 3 missions, and then you finish the chapter, it just makes impossible to reload that progress that you saved, saying, hey, you've beaten the chapter, do you want to start anew or continue? And continuing basically does nothing because you can't play any other missions, the storyline is over. And you had to just restart the district and play the first 3 missions, which are always the same and which you always have to do. But let's get back to early access. Despite all the issues, I liked the game quite a lot. Devs were pretty active on Discord, taking feedback and bug reports, actively posting about what comes next. Game had everything in there to be good. It just needed performance fix, and then a consistent variety of missions across all 4 chapters that it promised. And a bit more variety in power-ups and weapons would have been obviously welcome. I had my share of fun with it, and as I do with alphas, I put it away after playing through the entirety, just waiting for the full thing to come out. Alpha had a few more updates until mid-2022, after which devs went pretty silent. 2 years have passed, and there's been no public updates, and I've even heard speculations from multiple people that the game was ultimately canned. But then, suddenly, on October 10, 2024, it was announced that the game would be released in just 6 days. October 16th, 2024. Eventually, I got time to play it, as I wanted to spend a lot of time with the game uninterrupted, and that's where things got weird. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect that the game, where a few patches stated that they improved performance, and then extra 2 years were required to finish the game, and hopefully polish it to some extent, run on a gaming laptop at stable 60 FPS on at least some set of graphic settings. But yet it doesn't. It does run better, which I had to confirm by looking through my alpha footage and observing how performance degraded there, as it felt that the game ran about as bad as it used to, but I can confirm that it is better now. And after playing Final Build for 15 hours, I can't really say if there is performance degradation. I'm not sure. It feels like the game runs slower with time, but then I do go to some remote area of a city and it would run just fine. Additionally, switching graphics to lower ones yet again doesn't seem to be doing much. At some point I did switch to low, played in it for like an hour, and then switched to Ultra, and I practically observed no performance difference. Levels seem to be loading slower, with third map, one of the 2 new ones that were added in the final release, taking whole 2 or 3 minutes to load for me. This isn't really a laptop issue, as I played many modern releases and loadings lags were never a problem to that extent for me, with neither indie or AAA releases that I played, streamed, and recorded at the same time. I eventually just accepted that the game runs poorly for me and played hoping that I'll just enjoy what I already liked about the game. And during my first session, I actually was having fun for quite a while, but eventually too many cracks became apparent. Characters and progression stayed the same, no problem with that. But the amount of small bugs that I've encountered was, least to say, overwhelming. I think in a 4-hour session in the first area, which by the way was already released to alpha and had its own share of feedback and bug reports, I would imagine at the very least, I had more glitches and bugs than I've seen in 9 hours of initial alpha release gameplay. Ranged from same old glitches where car going up or down the slopes would just randomly get stuck because they are flying and not driving, and height calculation is just messed up, I guess. Some new ones like text for missions playing in weird places, dialogues repeating in different missions, headcons just being glitchy in many different ways, like requiring to destroy cars that simply aren't in a level, or counting direct hits for rocket launcher kills without giving you enough time to even do that many shots, not counting kills or cars at all. Missing text strings, not just in first area. Explosion particles missing and simply being squares for me was also quite bizarre. For some reason, cops were following you after you reset wanted level very often. Traffic would barely spawn even on high density settings, making you run around like an idiot waiting for some car to appear, sometimes finding that you ran 100, 200 meters without any cars spawning and just finding the parked car, and so on. So that's it, my time's up. Remember me, Joe, I'll be anything but good on. I'll be the wind in the rain. I'll be right. The sky, 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 sky. Just as it feels with you. So this hot feels now my time to die. Okay. So that's it. My time's up. Remember me, Joe. I'll be anything but gone. Oh, okay. So this text is also glitched. It plays at the end of first mission, but it's supposed to play at the end of this mission. Also, holy frame rate erroni. This is gonna end me. Pretty sure it did 5 vehicles. 10 citizen with a rocket launcher. Gladly. Wait, why did it stop counting? Okay. Oh, do I need to like... Oh my god. Are you kidding me? Or missing table entry. Who would that be? The cars just go inside the road. Honestly, I might have not even posted everything that I've encountered to Discord, as I might have forgotten, but I did my best to at least try to notify devs about it, even though many of these things might not get fixed. That's something I purposefully left out before. Shortly after the announcement of game going out of alpha, lead dev and potentially the only current dev, Carmack, replied that there is currently no plans to update the game. I will admit that I might be reading wrong into this, and it simply means that no new content is coming, but I feel it's important to mention that. Let's get back to the game. It did actually get quite a lot of new content, whether that was during previous alphas or final release, doesn't matter to me. There's been more guns, more power-ups variety, and even new hacks. Though I only found some of those when I was done playing with the game on stream and I was just cleaning all the other endings. Some additions I did find to be on a weaker side though, like when you get higher wanted level, the cars on parkings would just disappear and streetcars would also disappear, which just then requires you to either hope that you have a resprayable car already with you, or having to run to the shop with the Trickster power-up, the on-demand wanted level one that I've mentioned before. City is also now full of randomly generated mercenaries with random guns and health that you can pay to follow you. A mechanic that I believe is utilized like once in the entire set of missions throughout the game. And those mercs also make map completely unreadable. It's occupied like so much space there. Well, thanks that there is a toggle to disable them at the very least. But all in all, I enjoyed first and second chapters of the game the most, as they are pretty consistent. Varied radios with talk shows, music and ads playing, visually interesting cities with various unique parts, almost most of which are utilized in some capacity in missions. 6 gangs, 3 for each area, with more or less compelling dynamics, interesting interactions and endings. Writing is pretty edgy, but yet again, it is consistent, even if some characters don't make much sense at times. All endings play some sort of music and have a minimal cinematic, but that's unfortunately only something that can be said for the first 2 chapters. Even if they didn't have Oscar-winning writing, they had a story. They had characters that you would slowly get to know, and they would get to know you, what drives them, and why that drives them. And then you would transition to a new area, leaving Texas to find yourself in New Baltia, and after New Baltia you will end up in Neograd, and writing just disappears. Sure, it has few harder missions, some of which are not very interesting though, but characters give you very basic instructions and some vague exposition. You're in the middle of conflict that you know nothing about, and you learn nothing about throughout the entire chapter. The chapter also has approximately half the missions that chapters 1 and 2 had, with the groups having only 3, 5, and 6 missions, while before that, a minimal was 7 for a gang. During these missions, you practically learn nothing about the leader of a gang. None of them question your whereabouts or motivation, beliefs, loyalties. It honestly feels like writers only were there for the first and second chapter of the game. Endings have static image with some lightning effect or something in the background and just text playing over it. To add salt to the wound, percentage-wise, I've probably had the most broken missions in this chapter. Having NPC spawn invisible, having garage door closed in 2 different missions when you need to just drive a car inside there, having NPC that you are supposed to collect in a car attack their armed pursuers with bare fists, getting them killed, having bus full of people not move for just no good reason. As I already said, this level was loading for like 2-3 minutes for me, and having to replay it 3 times wasn't enough for me, as I was reloading it a few times hoping that hey, maybe this will fix the mission that I couldn't pass because above mentioned glitch. Though I did find the map quite interesting. It seems to be high up above what is like a city consumed by glacier at the bottom. But most of this map is just unused, also very flat. And unless you're gonna go doing headhunts, you're probably not gonna visit that. Speaking of headhunts, they become stupidly difficult here, and money that you get from them just simply not needed at this point. First 2 chapters used almost the entire map for at least something, even if it was just a tiny part of a mission. But they still did. Radio only has music, and while the music is pretty decent, here and in next chapter, it's just music. There is nobody talking, there is no ads, it's just completely different vibe, and I don't think it was exactly intentional. I think this is just limitations, to which I'll get in a moment. And then the final chapter is actually somewhat decent. It only has 3 missions, 1 for each gang. Completing each will instantly give you an ending. And I even did like one of the endings, as it ties in with the first 2 chapters. This chapter ran flawlessly for me, probably because map is just tiny, But once again, writing is just not good. You're simply given an objective, go and do. It honestly would be good to have at least some sort of exposition here. Like any. As again, you just randomly appear in this chapter and choose to side with someone and that's it. Who they are, why should I care? No idea. This chapter is designed to be extremely difficult. Max wanted level in this chapter is cranked to an absolutely ridiculous number of 10, where it's practically impossible to do anything without very specific strats, as you can't even respray on such wanted level, though on-demand wanted level reset just breaks this chapter completely. Headhunts are also absolutely ridiculously hard and require pretty much specific setups, which is something that I already hate about PC version of GTA 2, so I didn't even give it much of attention. I tried most of them. I saw that you needed to prepare for them. I was like, okay, cool. I won't do that, as they just don't count towards your progress in any way. And money is simply not an issue that far into a game. Apart from final endings, the game also has 2 secret endings, though they are pretty noticeable from the menu, so I made sure that I unlocked those before getting to this video, and they're pretty annoying to get to, as you need to get every other ending in a game. Why are they bound to chapters 1 and 2? No idea, they just are. They are also heavily gimmicky. I won't be spoiling them though. Perhaps somebody uploaded to YouTube, go find it, or play the game, or live without knowing. You honestly won't be missing too much. I do have a bit more to say about the game, but I'm finding it hard to structure my thoughts in a script, so that will have to be an impromptu part at the end of a video. Glitchpunk had many great ideas, most of which were ultimately just left as ideas. Things that are added to the game but serve no purpose other than being an option for you to use, completely disregarding general game balance. Story that initially holds the entire game from falling apart eventually disappears, leaving you in a sandbox with toys to play, but those toys ultimately don't give you the feeling that GTA 1 and 2 could. Insane feature creep played, in my opinion, a cruel joke on a game. As Dark Lord was a rather small studio, the game's success lied on the shoulders of early access release, which unfortunately didn't land well with many. Sure, there were people who enjoyed the game, me included, for what it presented, for ideas, concepts, for a gameplay vertical slice, simply hoping that performance will ultimately be fixed when the full thing is out. But their numbers weren't great, game lost traction and ultimately failed in sales. People moved on, and shortly after second game area, which is technically first game area, got released with more early access updates, layoffs occurred, leaving only one person at the wheel, at least according to Carmax, who's lead dev as I mentioned before, messages on Glitchpunk Discord. And I'm gonna quickly interrupt myself here, recording this way after editing the rest of the video. Just a final touch here, because I think I might be just spreading misinformation. Apparently, it seems like the text on a Discord says the production had to be cut down, which doesn't necessarily mean that there were layoffs. Like there might have just been less side programmers, because Carmack also mentions people helping him greatly with the last 2 cities in 2022, which is also on all these screenshots come from Discord. It's public source, you can go read it all. But I might have ultimately made it sound way, way crueler than it is. I feel like there are still people who work at Dark Lord, and there are other people than Carmack who do something. So yeah, just wanted to make sure I cleared this out in the voice and not in text on screen. Let's finish this up. And while most of the game was somewhat ready by early 2023, it took well over a year to get past the Daedalic QA and get game greenlit for release in Q4 2024, which was way past initial estimations. But as I said in the beginning, it might not be all doom and gloom. Carmack didn't give up on making games, and shortly after release he announced that work on new Dark Lord game is underway, a boomer shooter called Gun Priest. What that means to me is that there is a chance that in future, once there is time, or maybe people, Glitchpunk might get an update or two, possibly fixing nasty bugs and addressing more performance issues. But as of right now, as a person who did give early access release of a game 6 out of 10, with a possibility to be something greater if it were to be running flawlessly with consistent content across the entire game, After experiencing the final product, I unfortunately cannot recommend it to you, as it's simply underwhelming, and currently most I can give this game is 4 out of 10, which some of you might even think is too much, given everything that I've said, but I'll elaborate on that in a bit. I really do hope that this game isn't going to be the end of Dark Lord, and I'll be one of the first people to tell you that the game is finally good, if updates do come and address many of aforementioned issues. And now to an impromptu part that I promised you. I could probably talk quite a lot more about Glitchpunk, but I don't think there is point to it. I did say quite a lot during my full video. Honestly, go check that out, or the last 10 minutes where I give my summarized opinion on the game. But I kind of want to talk about a bit more why that game was so weirdly important to me. And it's so stupid, really. It's very selfish. It's coming from like from the inside of me, where I'm just feeling like, hey, this game is like so important to me personally. And there is a reason for that, because I was never like approached by Dark Lord Studio to, to promote the game or anything. I was at the time probably the biggest person on the internet doing anything GTA 2 related, and they made a game which is a new take on GTA 2, and they just added a reference to me in the game, which when I discovered, I was like, why would you do that? I'm like a literal nobody who like 40 people watch on like Twitch, and like not even 1,000 people watch on YouTube. Like, why? And yet it felt so nice. It felt like, damn, this is that one hobby, that one game which is like important to me and seemingly very important to them, that they just gave me a cameo. I'm a car in the game. There is a car called Tezuro, and there's even a mission in the game where you need to steal that car and then stream how you jump across like the the gap in a trench to raise your popularity. It's crazy. It's so stupid, but like it made me feel like, damn, people not only care about GTA 2, they also care about me. Which is like really weird. And obviously that wasn't the only reason why I liked the game. Like everything that I said about Alpha being like pretty interesting in content, that still stands even now. Like when replaying casually to get like the final endings, I did still enjoy the game. Like I did still enjoy the characters. I had to mostly do like first two chapters the most. I just saw how much better those are than chapter 3. Well, and 4, I guess, but if 4 was always meant to be an epilogue, like I can let it slide, but chapter 3 is just, that might have as well been the vertical slice that they give for the game, which has practically no story, but you can play with everything. Honestly, it feels like a bonus level. It doesn't feel like it has anything to do with first two chapters. It doesn't seem to be doing anything with fourth chapter. And it's a bloody shame that the game didn't do well. I even don't like, I was contemplating whether I should record review on the game or not, because I'm not gonna be kind to it. I feel like the game is unfortunately not good. Like I said, I give it 4, but it's more of a 3 out of 10, with with how buggy and just choppy it is. There is like something that is still gripping me in there, and it's not just my ego which got played with in a good way. It's just like I see that they cared. I see that they wanted a very unique take on a game that's very dear to me and seemingly very dear to them. I'm just hoping that eventually, as I already said, this all comes out for Carmack and whoever is there in Dark Lord games. Maybe their next game does well, and maybe they get more people to work on Glitchpunk, and they will fix everything that isn't perfect with the game. Like Glitchpunk has so many mechanics, like it can actually be so interesting to try like playthroughs with like certain hacks or without certain hacks, or like certain restrictions, and it still can, you still can do it. Like I just don't want to play the game when it's so buggy and laggy. And I just, when I was playing it, I was like, ah. I guess the only spotlight I can give on this game is this review. If you still think that you like, and it's not that you might think, like you can enjoy the game. I did have good time in it. It's just that something that I would let slide for an early access release, I would just not get slide for a full game unless there are patches for the game. It's just, it's sad that it is in the way it is. I think that ultimately they had too many ambitions and they should have scaled down. And I don't like certain things that they've done with the game. It's their game. And as far as I can tell, first two chapters they did practically the way they wanted. And third and fourth chapter and everything that I don't like about them is just because first two didn't do so well because performance tanked. And it seemingly was just performance. But I needed to let you know my involvement with the game and just vent a bit more on the camera before I end this video. A very sour video to make, but I will be touching on more GTA 2 clones, and if Glitchpunk ever comes around, as I said, you'll see a video from me with that speedruns, challenges, another short revisit review. It'll be here, right in this channel. And that's the Zero, signing out. Bye.